Hello YouTube, this is Mark Hill and I am the Traveling NP. I am on another assignment in Minnesota, one of the regular hospitals I work at routinely, usually once or twice a month. Finishing up the summer. I have contracts through to October the 5th, and then on that week, we will be heading back to Mississippi for the winter. And at that point, I'll be flying in and out of the Great White North while my family enjoys the more temperate weather in the South. I wanted to make this video today more specifically about Telemed. I've mentioned Telemed in the past. And most of you know, if you've been watching my videos for any length of time, it has become a large part of my business as far as locums and private contractor. I get a lot of questions about Telemed. Almost every day somebody asks me about Telemed, either on Facebook or YouTube or sometimes numerous times a day. And everybody wants to know about Telemed. So I want to give a little advice and let everybody understand what telemedicine is about, and let everybody understand that telemedicine is not a get-rich-quick endeavor. I started working telemedicine about 4 years ago, and this company contacted me out of the blue. I had never really considered working telemedicine until they contacted me about I guess it was probably the summer of 2014, and I started doing assessments on the phone with diabetic patients for diabetic testing supplies, glucometers, lancets, testing strips, things like that. And this company that I started with was kind of a startup company. And so we gradually moved into other things like orthotic devices, doing assessments for knee braces and back braces, and creams like diclofenac gel, lidocaine patches, and over time, that company kind of progressed. Now, after about a year and a half, 2 years of working with that company, I moved to Montana, and they had not really expanded into Montana very well at that time. And so I didn't quit, but I kind of lost contact with them because I didn't really have any business there. And then when I got into the locums part of working, I saw some ad in the paper for telemedicine, and it kind of sparked my memory. And at this time, I had gotten 3 or 4 or 5 different state licenses under my belt just by working locums. And so I called this old company again, my contact person, and of course they were more than happy to put me back on the roll. And now that I had these multiple state licenses, I had a lot more opportunity to do more telemedicine. Well, one thing led to another, and I said, well, shoot, this telemedicine thing is, not only is the money pretty good, there's not a lot of time requirement, and, so I started checking into it. Well, I started checking into different things, and before I knew it, I had 3 different telemedicine companies that I was working for. And since then, one of those companies, they changed up some of the rules and they changed up some of the reimbursements. So I have resigned from that company. It was through a staffing company anyway. And so after my contract was up, after 6 months, I just chose to stop working for them because they wanted to significantly reduce the reimbursement for what we were doing. And although the money was going to be okay, it was not going to be nearly as lucrative as it had been. So what they were essentially asking me to do is to take a big cut in pay for the same work. and I wasn't willing to do that. So I let them go. We left amicably, and I may, if they ever decide they want me again for the original contract, I may work for them. But then I started working with two other companies. One of them, the assessments ended up taking a long time, and the hourly potential wasn't that great, and you had to be on call for long periods of time. And so I really just found that I wasn't making much money with them, and so I just resigned from them too. Now I think I'm still on the rolls with them. If I wanted to work with them, I probably could, but I basically just said, look, I just don't really have time to do this. I don't have this kind of time available to me, not making any more money than I was making. So then I started really focusing on this one particular company. It's actually multiple companies that go through the staffing company, that I do a lot of orthotic device assessments. And basically, people call in. You see these commercials for knee braces, back braces, things like that. People call in and order these braces, and they'll talk to an intake person. They'll take all their information. And then all I essentially do is I look over their application, and if I have any questions about it, I'll call the patient and clarify some stuff. And then I'll either approve or disapprove of the brace based on their symptoms and things like that. And then I notify the patient for any clarification, or notify them that I've approved their brace. And that has turned into a really busy situation for me. I do a lot of work based on those type things. And this is between two separate companies that I work for. So you can imagine that I spend a majority of my time working with those two companies. I've also just recently started with another startup telemed company that really hasn't gotten off the ground good yet. They're just now getting their software together, and so I've only done very few assessments with them, but it's more urgent care type stuff. People calling in with sore throat, ear pain, urinary tract symptoms, things like that. I don't prescribe any narcotics at all. A lot of what you see is patients who can't get to the doctor and have run out of their blood pressure medicines, and they pay a flat fee in order to get their blood pressure medicine refilled, and we can give them a month with one refill. We can also order lab work, x-rays, things like that they can take to a local lab if they need to have their cholesterol checked or whatever. So it's more of a online call, primary care / urgent care type telemedicine. A lot of things we can't see, we can't do, mainly medication refills, upper respiratory type infections, things like that, things that you can kind of glean enough information over the phone to prescribe, whatever medicines, with the understanding they know up front that there is no narcotics involved in any of it. And so the charting system is pretty efficient. Anyway, but this is a startup, so I'm getting in on this one kind of like I did the one 4 years ago. And the one I started with 4 years ago is just booming now, so it's a huge company after 4 years. This one is I feel like the people have really done their homework on this deal, so I expect it to turn into another good, lucrative situation for me as well. So we're just hanging in there on that. And there's basically, after I got all my credentialing and everything done and got all reversed on all the computer stuff, basically we're just waiting at this point to get all the marketing done and to get the patient population started. So I expect a few more weeks of waiting to see how that works. But let me say this about telemedicine. Telemedicine is not a magic bullet. It's not something that's just going to make you rich quick. I invest probably 4 to 5 hours a day in telemedicine. Now, I've gotten my business to where I do make a really good living doing it. I probably make about $10,000 a month gross on telemedicine, and that is probably going to get larger as time goes by. So it's very lucrative now, but I have 7 state licenses at this point, and so I do telemedicine for 7 different states. Took me a long time to get those licenses. And it's the kind of thing that after you get experience and your resume, shows that you're doing all these things, jobs start becoming more available. But let me say this. Other than that first telemedicine job, which I still work for that company, all the other jobs that I've found on telemedicine, I found on Indeed, looking on the computer and looking for telehealth positions for nurse practitioners, and I found all my other jobs like that. So I've had 4 different telemedicine jobs that I just found advertised on the computer and applied for them, and they contacted me. And now I make anywhere from $10,000 to $11,000 a month doing telemedicine. So, but it's taken a long time. It's the better part of a year, kind of working up to that. And I've been doing this a long time. I've been doing it for 4 years. I think the first year that I was doing telemedicine, I made an extra $16,000 or $17,000 that year. I was in private practice, but that was a pretty good. That's $1,200 a month extra. And then the next year after that, I did a little better. And then when I moved, that all kind of went away until I picked back up. Now, telemedicine I'm going to make well over $100,000, probably $120,000 and $130,000 a year just doing telemedicine. And that's nothing to sneeze at. And that's at home, sitting in front of the TV, drinking a cup of coffee, or sitting at my desk, drinking a cup of coffee and making phone calls and talking to people and doing assessments and doing paperwork. And so it's not hard. And you work at your own pace. You can do it when you want to. A lot of times when I get up, I'll do telemedicine in the morning for a couple hours. And then depending on what I have to do, I'll go run errands or whatever I want to do, and then I'll come back in the evening and do more telemedicine. I try to have all my telemedicine assessments knocked out every day. Now, it can be up to 48 hours to get your assessment. So I pretty well hit it pretty hard when I'm doing it to make sure that I get all my assessments done so I don't get backed up. So I devote time to it. Now, when I'm working and I'm real busy, sometimes it's hard to get to the assessments. Like right now, I'm on call, so I have a sleep room where it's not real, plush or anything. But while I'm waiting on calls to come in for the ER, I sit down here and do telemedicine. Just do it on the computer and make calls. So I've been down here for the last hour just doing that, and I think I've done 19 assessments today just on my breaks. So more than that, actually. I think there's about 22 assessments all total. So, and you get paid per assessment. The lowest rate I get is $20 per assessment. And those assessments on that particular company, they only take me about 3 or 4 minutes per assessment. So technically, if you've got the work, you can make a ton of money. I have made up to, some days, I've made up to $300 an hour doing telemed assessments. I think the best day I've ever had, and it's been within the last 2 weeks on telemed, I made $871 in one day doing telemedicine. That is nothing to sneeze at. So when that happens, and there's tons of $500 days, I couldn't even count all the $500 days. And like today, I've had about a $600 day. 2 days ago, I had a $700 day. About a week ago was an $870-something day. So there are times when you're really busy and you can really pull in the money. But there's no magic bullet. It's just working hard, putting in the time. That's all it is to it. And honestly, I don't like telemedicine. I'm going to be just flat out honest with you. I do telemedicine for the money. I like what I do at the bedside. I enjoy ER work. I enjoy taking care of sick people. And I'll never give that up. I do telemedicine for the money. Is what it is. So everybody has their price, and telemedicine, even though I don't like it, it pays well enough for me to do it. So And it's gratifying to some degree, and the fact that you can do it on your own time and sit in your easy chair and make your assessments, all those things are pluses too. But you got to start at the beginning, knowing you're going to start out low and work your way up. And then you got to ask yourself at some point, and locums is a perfect situation for telemedicine because you're not always going to have work. So if you can get your locums stuff set up to where you have a few hours off, or you're only working 3 or 4 days a week, or you work short contracts like I do, then there's a lot of time to do telemedicine. And so you can supplement your income with that. And really, telemedicine has become more of a primary income for me now. I'm starting to slow down on my locums just because I can make so much money on telemedicine, and I don't have to be up 24 hours a day taking call in the ER. Now, I'll always do that, but I'm going to slow down on that part of it a little bit. So, anyway, just give a little information on the telemedicine end of it. You can make it in telemedicine. There's money to be made. It's where everything's going as far as healthcare. But you're not going to jump in and make $1 million. You're just not. You got to work your way up, increase your business, get a good reputation out there, and then you can start making decent money. Anyway, just a word for the day. Telemedicine's a good way to go, but nothing happens overnight. Anyway, this is Mark Hill. I'm the traveling NP and just wanted to give my view on telemedicine. Thanks. Till next time.